Here's a little secret. You ready? You don't need to spend a ton of money to build out a really good streaming setup. In fact, I've got a couple of products here with me today that will totally take your setup to the next level, and they don't cost that much at all. We've got the FiFine D6 stream controller and the V3 video capture card. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and welcome back to the Spare Tech Room, where I try to help you make better tech choices. Now, quick disclosure, before we dive in, FiFine did send me these two items, but they're not paying me to make this video at all, and everything that I say in this video is based on my own personal opinion. Also, if you've been around the channel for a little bit, you know that this is not my first rodeo with FiFine. They've actually been on a bit of a roll lately with some really solid budget gear for streamers. I recently reviewed their K688 microphone, which I have set up as my main microphone over on my desk, as well as the SC3 audio mixer, which is a really solid budget audio mixer that works great with the K688. Both of those videos are going to be linked down in the description box, and I'll also link them at the end of this video, so if you want to jump on into those next and check them out, you totally can. But today is all about these two budget-friendly gadgets, the D6 and the V3. Now, the D6 stream controller is FiFine's take on a programmable Stream Deck. It's a little kind of command center that has 15 programmable buttons on it. And then of course, the V3 is a capture card, which is basically a plug and play way to bring video from another device like a video game console or a camera or a second computer. But we'll go ahead and start with the D6 stream controller and take a look at that. Okay, so let's start with what you actually get in the box. Of course, packaging from FiFine is once again pretty solid. I've already taken this out and used it, of course, but I packaged it back up so that way you can kind of see what the process is like when you take it out of the box. You've got a little user guide here, which is pretty cool because it tells you about the software that you want to download along with the D6. It is packaged up in some pretty solid styrofoam and then wrapped in plastic. Now you do get, in addition to the controller, there is a USB cable here, which I'll take out of the packaging yet again. This is a USB-C to USB-A cable, but at the USB-A end, you have a little adapter, so you can take that off if you want to go USB-C to USB-C. I forget the exact length. I'll throw it up on the screen here so that way you can see it. But you've got that in the box, and then, of course, the actual device. So we'll take that out. Now mine is a bit scuffed up because I was a little rough with it, so please excuse me for that. But yeah, you'll see here I've got some scuffs. I could probably buff those out if I really tried, but here is the device. It's made out of a pretty solid material. Of course, it's all plastic, but it feels pretty sturdy, especially for the price. And again, you've got those 15 LCD display buttons right here that you can program to whatever you want. It's pretty low profile. On the bottom, you have some rubber feet and a little rubber pad here, so that way it doesn't slide around on your desk when you're pressing buttons. And then on the back, you have the USB-C port, which will send data and power to it, as well as a little RGB button, which I'll cut in some footage here so you can see how that looks. You can cycle through different RGB and even turn it off if you don't want to use it at all. So you've got that. Now, of course, if you're not familiar with this kind of product, again, you could think of it as kind of like a little magic panel that sits on your desk, and each button is its own little tiny LCD screen that you can program to do basically anything you want. Now, for most streamers, they're going to be using this for things like OBS, where you can set up one button to start your stream, another to stop the stream, or mute your mic, or even trigger sound effects, or little GIFs or whatever that you want to pop up on screen, instead of just having to like dig through menus or click around on your keyboard and mouse. You just tap a button and it's done. And the setup is super simple. You just download the D6 software, which works with both Mac and Windows. And once you fire that up, you just pick a square, assign a different action to it, and then you can even put a little icon on there, and you can customize the icon. So it's really simple to use. Now here's where I think this really shines. It's not just for streamers. I use mine all the time for DaVinci Resolve for editing video. I've got buttons mapped to like cut and zoom and do all kinds of different things in there. You can also use it for a little bit of nerdier stuff. So like in Microsoft Excel, you can assign formulas to different buttons, or in games, you can have hotkeys. So if you're playing an MMO, instead of having to remember, what the different buttons on the keyboard do, you can have all your different attacks and things assigned to different buttons on here and use it there. And that's just scratching the surface. I mean, if you can think of any time that you have to press a button or multiple buttons on your keyboard or click on several things, you can assign that pretty much to this. I've even seen people use them for shortcuts in Premiere or Photoshop or Logic Pro. So really the D6 isn't just for live streamers, it's for anyone who wants to make their workflow smoother. If you want me to put together a full video setup where I walk through exactly how I use the software and show you a step-by-step process of how I have my device mapped out, let me know in the comments. If enough people are interested in that, I'll definitely make it happen. Okay, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. If you've been looking at stream controllers, you've probably heard of the Elgato Stream Deck. It's basically the standard in the space. And don't get me wrong, the Stream Deck is fantastic. There's tons of plugins, super polished software. It's really just a nice device overall. But here's the thing. It ain't cheap. The regular 15-button Stream Deck goes for around $150, and if you want the XL version that has 32 buttons on it, that's like $250. Even the little tiny 6-button Stream Deck Mini was gonna run you about $80 or $90. And the FiFine D6 comes in at literally half the price of the regular Stream Deck right now. And actually, the last time I checked, it's on sale for even less. So we're talking about a third of the cost as the regular Stream Deck, and it does pretty much everything that the Stream Deck does. You still get 15 customizable buttons, you still get folder support so that you can stack multiple functions in one button, you still get to customize your own icons, and a lot of people who compared them side by side, the FiFine D6 has actually sharper buttons. The LCD on here is actually a higher resolution, so not only is it less expensive by a lot, it's actually a better looking experience. Now, is FiFine software as polished as Elgato's? No, not really. You know, Elgato has been doing this for a long time and they've built out a massive ecosystem of third-party plugins. Now, the D6 software is still really good. It works, but it doesn't quite have as many bells and whistles as Elgato. But unless you're some kind of super high level professional streamer with really advanced needs, you're not going to be missing those few extra plugins. For 99% of people, the D6 is going to give you the exact same functionality you'd get from the Stream Deck at half the price or less. And that price difference really matters when you're talking about budget gear because, you know, let's be real, if you're saving 70 or 80 bucks here, that's money that you can put towards a decent microphone or a solid webcam or even just a few months of whatever subscription service that you're using, maybe Photoshop or Premiere or DaVinci Resolve even. Unless you're just an Elgato loyalist, the FiFine D6, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. Okay, now we are going to move on to the V3 video capture card. And let's take a look at what's inside the box. This one's pretty simple. You have similar packaging to the D6 and really to every other FiFine device. You've got a little instruction manual in here. You've got some styrofoam protecting the device. There's also a USB cable in here as well, which I haven't personally used because I had my own USB-C cable already set up, but it does come with one which is pretty nice. This is a USB-C to USB-A. Now this doesn't have the USB-C adapter on the other side, so you'll need to either provide one for yourself or use a different cable if you want to, just something to be aware of. But the actual device, let's get that out of the box here. And here it is. You've got the V3 capture card. It's pretty compact. It's actually super lightweight. It's made out of plastic here, and I think it's probably fairly hollow inside if I were to take it apart. But you've got some vents at the bottom to help with cooling, some feet here so it doesn't slide around on your desk. On one side, you've got the USB-C cable, which will run to your computer, as well as an HDMI out. So if you want to pass through your video, you can bring it into this, which will send the video to your computer, but you can also send it out to a separate monitor. So that way you can have it on your TV or whatever you want. You've got an RGB button here, which again, you can cycle through the RGB on the top or just turn it off completely. And then on the other side, you've got a headset port as well as a line in, so you can bring in other audio if you want to, as well as of course the HDMI input. Now, a capture card is one of those things that you probably don't really think about until you need it, but if you're trying to get into streaming at all, it is absolutely essential. It's what lets you bring video from that external device. So again, a video game console, a second PC, even a camera, and you can bring that into your streaming software. And the V3 really kind of nails the basics. It supports full 1080p 60 frames per second, which is typically the sweet spot for most people. You're gonna get smooth gameplay and sharp visuals. There's no real noticeable lag. That's one thing that I've actually experienced and I've heard a lot of other people talking about, is that the lag going into your computer from your game console or whatever is really not noticeable. And that's great for something so inexpensive. I've actually been on a bit of a nostalgia kick lately, so I hooked mine up to my Xbox 360 and it worked super easily. There's no things that I had to download, no plugins or anything like that. You literally just take the HDMI into the device and the USB into the computer, open up OBS, and the signal came through super clean. Now let's talk value again, because again, that's really important with these devices. If you've shopped for capture cards before, then you know that once again, the big name is Elgato, and their main device, I think it's the HD60S, I want to say, it goes for like 120 to 150 bucks depending on where you're shopping. And yeah, it's pretty solid, but the FiFine V3, you're paying a fraction of that, again, about half. And for most people, you're not going to notice the difference between the two. You still get that smooth 1080p 60 capture. You still get really reliable inputs on here. The only limitation is that with the V3, it doesn't support 4K recording. So if you're trying to stream from maybe a PS5 or you're trying to get full 4K HDR recording, this is not going to be the device for you. But if you're streaming 1080p content, and let's be honest, that's where most people are streaming, is at 1080p, the V3 is going to be plenty. So whether you're gaming or podcasting or maybe even teaching online, or you just want a really cool webcam setup with your DSLR or mirrorless camera, the V3 gets the job done without costing an arm and a leg. So who are these products for? Well, if you're brand new to streaming and you've been worried about cost, these are definitely for you. The D6 is going to give you that powerful control for half the price of the competition, and the V3 lets you hook up consoles or cameras without having to drop over 100 bucks. If you're a hobbyist gamer who just wants to share gameplay with your friends, they're perfect. If you're a student or a professional who wants to look better on Zoom, then you can totally use the V3 as well. Or if you're an editor or a podcaster or somebody who just wants to speed up their workflow, the D6 is going to become your best friend. Basically, if you've ever looked at streaming gear and thought, man, I just can't justify the price, then FiFine, they've solved your problems. All right, so real quick, let's just hit some pros and cons. Pros: the D6 gives you a Stream Deck style control at half the price with sharp button screens and a ton of customization. The V3 delivers clean 1080p 60 frames per second capture with zero setup headaches. Both are affordable and easy to set up and genuinely useful beyond just streaming. And honestly, FiFine just keeps proving that budget doesn't have to mean cheap. Now the cons: the D6 software works great, but it's not going to be quite as polished or as plugin heavy as something like Elgato's ecosystem. Also, the V3, as I mentioned before, it does max out at 1080p 60, which is going to be totally fine for most streamers, but not for people who are maybe a bit more hardcore and require 4K. Also, the build quality is not going to be really luxury tier at this price, though, with the price that they come in at, that's kind of the trade-off you're working with. So yeah, if you're looking to level up your streaming or your desk setup without emptying your wallet, the FiFine D6 and the V3 are two of the easiest recommendations I can make for you. If you want to grab either of these, I'm going to have links down below so you can check out the latest pricing. And hey, if you want to keep building out your setup, check out my other FiFine reviews. I've got one on that K688 microphone and another on the SC3 XLR interface. And both of those are going to be linked on the screen somewhere right here and then down in the description box. So go ahead and jump on into those videos next. If this video helped you out at all, do me a solid and hit the like button. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more budget-friendly tech reviews like this. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll catch you next time in the spare tech room. Be good.